Welcome to the program, friend. We are broadcasting today from parts unknown, surviving this blizzard like a lot of Americans. There's a lot to talk about in today's program. I am Randall Terry, and this is Voice of Resistance. Say your line. Resist the sun! Resist the sun!
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance.
Welcome to the program, friend. I hope wherever you are watching this that you are safe and that your family is recovering, if you needed to, from these hellacious storms that have pounded this country. Many people are still without electricity. A lot of people are still without water. I don't even know how someone without electricity could be watching this program. But if you are, I hope that you get your electricity back quickly. I mentioned and spoke a little bit at length on Tuesday's program about the passing of Rush Limbaugh. After I did the show, I decided I would take a look at what people said who hated Rush. And I foolishly, really, truly foolishly thought that he would be given some modicum of respect from people on the left. Holy smokes, was I in for a surprise. When Joe Scheidler passed away last month, there were people, New York Times, Washington Post, that did lengthy stories on him, and they obviously criticized him because he was the godfather of pro-life activism and was against a woman's right to choose to kill her baby, etc. But it was still a somewhat endearing and even at points whimsical review of his life. Must have been the reporters that they used. Because after Rush passed, now remember, Rush had been sick with cancer for well over a year publicly. And he thought that he was going to die much sooner than he did. God heard many of our prayers and extended his life. And sadly, we lost him. Sadly for him, he got to see with his own eyes the inauguration of Joe Biden, but I digress. The fact that he was sick and the fact that he said before Christmas that he knew that he was going to die, that the treatment had failed, gave a lot of people time to prepare scathing, hate-filled renditions of his life. Now, it's almost comical. I know that Rush would laugh about it, but it's comical because these are the people who are constantly accusing us of hatred. And we don't hate people. We hate the sin, but we love the people. And I'm happy to see every Saul of Tarsus converted and become Paul the Apostle that can possibly be. It's really simple. I'm happy to see every David who goes off the rails and does abominable things to come back. So we're not the ones that are filled with hate. These people had an enduring hatred for Rush. And I know that part of it was just jealousy. They hated the fact that he had so many tens of millions of people that he influenced. He really was America's anchorman. He had bigger numbers, bigger cumes than all of the major networks. So you look at these pompous people on ABC, CBS, NBC, and the mini pompous people on CNN. They don't have the ratings, the name recognition, the following that Rush had. They will never have it. So there was an element of jealousy there. And Rush was funny. He was a brilliant political analyst, and he could see things coming. He was just phenomenal. So to read the articles about his death and the stuff that they were taking out of context and dredging up was just pathetic. And let me tell you one of the great gifts that Rush gave to all of us, whether in broadcasting or at the water cooler. It was the permission to say what was true. It was the permission to say what was politically incorrect. He never backed down. He kept mocking the feminazis right to the end. He kept mocking the socialists and the Obama supporters right to the end. He kept on referring to the bizarre tragic, self-destructive lifestyle that has culminated in this gender confusion and so-called homosexual marriage, all of it. He held the line right to the end. And for that, we need to be thankful. And we need to learn from that we must proclaim the truth. It's easy to proclaim the truth when the truth is popular. It's easy to proclaim the truth when you know that you are in, let's say, the four walls of your church and 95% of the people there agree with you. That's easy. When you go into the public sphere, when you say that which is true and unpopular publicly, that's when it matters. Truth has within it the seeds of its own victory, but courage is the guardian of truth. We must be courageous. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to talk about the fact that we are living in two completely different Americas right now. We're in a cold civil war. We really are. And it's not simply about whether or not we have oil in the Keystone Pipeline. It's about one itty-bitty phrase. You ready? The fear of God. I'll be right back. Welcome back, friend. I'm going to read from the book of Romans, chapter 3, to set up this next section on the fear of God, to talk about the division that is happening in America today. All right? Let's start with verse 13. Their throats are open graves. Their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. Sounds like CNN commentators. Makes me think of Don Lemon. Their mouths are full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Ruin and misery mark their ways. And the way of peace they do not know. There is no fear of God before their eyes. The ruin and misery. Think of communism. Think of the ruin and misery that happened under the Soviet Union and the Iron Fist. Think of the ruin and misery that is happening in China right now. And yet there are people in media who still want a socialist/communist regime, still think China is our friend, don't have the guts to denounce the human rights violations that occur in China every single day. The cursing, the bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. This is about child killing. I mean, that's how you can apply it to today's world. The murder of innocent babies. They praise it, they laud it, they defend it, they insist that it is a right. You can read the whole of Romans chapter 3. It's a very apt description of a lot of what is going on in America. And the passage ended with the phrase, there is no fear of God before their eyes. Since they don't know the fear of God, what wisdom do they have? The scripture says that the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. The beginning of wisdom. So you think about the politicians that are destroying this country. You think about the media elite that are their prophets and their amen corner. And what is the overarching thing that they share in common? For many of them, no fear of God. The Bible says that the fear of God is to hate evil. Now, evil is defined by who? The Supreme Court, right? No. The latest opinion poll, right? No. It's defined by the latest philosophical fad, right? No. Good and evil are defined by someone outside of the box. We're in this little box down here, the human race. We're in a box. We're on planet Earth, okay? If we get to determine what is good and what is evil, then it's going to constantly shift, whether it's with a democracy or a poll or the barrel of a gun or a Supreme Court decision. But that is not what defines good and evil. Good and evil is defined by our Maker. So the fear of God is to hate evil. We can only know what is evil by what the Almighty defines as evil. So if you think something is wrong, that's just wrong. You better hold your horses there. You better come to grips with the fact that the Almighty better say that it's good or evil and not you. I mean, we can have opinions on certain things. There's area of public policy where, quote, people of goodwill can disagree. But there are certain areas where we can't. Nobody of goodwill thinks it's okay to murder a child. Nobody of goodwill, good, oh wait, there's that word, good. Goodwill, good is defined by God. Nobody of goodwill thinks that it's okay for two people of the same gender to have horrific, abominable sexual acts between them and then call that marriage or the consummation of a marriage. No one of goodwill believes that. So we're in a situation today where the people who have no fear of God before their eyes have redefined good and evil. Bitter is put for sweet. Darkness is put for light. Evil is called good, and good is called evil. I'm quoting from the prophet Isaiah. That's where we're at today, people. We didn't have to get here. It's a tragedy that we got here. I'll tell you a little bit of how we got here when we come back, but if we're going to be wise as serpents, then we have to have the fear of God. And that means we don't fear man. Or if we do have the fear of man, we subjugate it to the fear of God. Remember, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is doing what's right in spite of your fears. So you might be afraid of what people are going to say or do, but you have more of a fear of what God says about you and what God will do. And so you obey him and you proclaim his truth. And you don't succumb to the pressure and the lies of men and women who have no fear of God before their eyes. I'll be right back. Welcome back, friend. As you probably know, drought is one of the chastisements of God on a wicked and rebellious people, specifically delineated in the scriptures repeatedly. We have just witnessed, and still in the tail end, of millions and millions of people in Texas, and by the way, in the southwest corner of Tennessee, it's not making the news because it's such a small area compared to Texas, where people don't have drinking water. That's a scary thing. So thank God we have the ability to truck water in, and that's what's going on, which is good. But I've been watching this news as we saw these hellacious storms sweep through the country, putting millions of people without electricity, then millions of people without water. Lord, I'm laughing because of CNN. I'm not laughing because they didn't have any water. You might know that the windmills froze, right? These windmills that are so inefficient, that we were sold a bill of goods, and now these windmills are allegedly generating electricity. The windmills froze. A lot of the solar panels were covered with ice and snow. They didn't work. And so CNN had a headline, Fox News blames windmills for power outage in Texas. Well, there is actually a mathematical equation about how many kilowatts of power come from these windmills, how many kilowatts of power were being pulled to try and heat the homes of Texas. And when these windmills failed to produce their portion of the power needed for the power grid, there might be a real mathematical equation there. But they're so hell-bent on saying that fossil fuels are bad, which they're not. They're so hell-bent on wanting to destroy the supremacy of the American economy. Like we've done something wrong, that our economy is the best economy in the world, which it won't be for long if we're on this path. But they're so hell-bent on us losing our place and redistributing the wealth like good socialists and good communists around the world that they refuse to see the truth. How many hundreds of thousands of people are going to be out of work right now because of Biden's energy policies? How many people are going to lose their homes? There's a lot of people that are going to lose their homes. People that were having good paying jobs because of the Keystone Pipeline or because of drilling on federal lands where so much of our energy independence comes from. Do they care about those people? Are you seeing CNN carry stories about the misery, the ruin and misery that is happening because of Biden's and the lunatic Green New Deal left, because of what they're pushing on the American people? No, they don't care. They have an agenda. But what's crazy is they have no fear of God before their eyes. I started the program talking about the fact that we're living in a divided country, a cold civil war. It's almost like two universes. So Fox can point out, oh, look, the windmills aren't producing electricity. And CNN is so corrupt in its mind and so opposed to all things conservative, I submit to you it's because they have no fear of God before their eyes, that they're mocking, CNN is mocking Fox for pointing out the obvious. And what neither Fox nor CNN are saying, oh, here, my Lord, send me. There's a God in heaven. These are the beginnings of sorrows, people. If you've watched this show for any length of time, you know that I have been proclaiming for years that there will come a payment due for the blood that is crying out to God. How much will it be? How long will it be? In what fashion will it come? Who will it hit the hardest? These things are unknown yet. I can speculate. Based upon my reading of the scriptures, we can sort of see the future because we can clearly see the past. We know what God has done and said in times past. And so we can look and see what he might do in the future. Now, there's one thing we know he's not going to do. He's not going to destroy the world by a flood. Is this the last segment? Are we done? So we got one more after this? All right. So there is, I'll tell you this. It's a kind of a sick, funny joke. One of my sons came up with this. He said the rainbow, it's God's promise that the next time he destroys the world, it will be by fire. I'll be right back. Welcome back, friend. I want to challenge a few of you. This could be one of the most important things that some of you have heard in a long time. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you, please hear what I'm about to say. And hear it in the spirit that I'm trying to give it. Jesus said this phrase, occupy till I come. Occupy. That's actually a military term. We're occupying enemy territory. The gates of hell will not prevail against us. He said, no man knows the day or the hour of the second coming. Right? No one knows. And yet, a massive cottage industry that has generated tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars in sales of books, tapes, videos, DVDs, ministries, that all revolve around one thing: picking the date for the Lord's return, heralding the message that we're in the last days. Maybe we are, maybe we're not. And I submit to you that the preoccupation with the second coming, the preoccupation with the second coming is a poison in the hearts of millions of Christians in America. And it is based upon false teaching many times and arrogance and frankly, the wealth of America. What do you mean, Randall, the wealth of America? Oh, think with me about 1920, 21, 22, when the Bolsheviks had taken over Russia and they were killing priests, killing Christians, slaughtering people. They opened up the gulags. Think of China. Millions of Christians being persecuted. And you're going to say, oh, it's the last days. It's the end of the world because Biden won the election and we've got snowstorms and we've got no electricity. It's a sign of the times. Shut up. You're self-consumed. This theology doesn't even sell anywhere in the world except here. And I've been in this faith a long time, people, a long time. And when I came to Christ as a 17-year-old many years ago, over 4 decades ago, man, they were picking Antichrist. They were picking the dates in 1948, and Israel became a nation, and the second coming is any minute. It was all false. Every last bit of it was false. And there were a lot of young people back then preoccupied with the second coming. They didn't do anything important with their life because they were waiting every day looking up at the clouds to see if Jesus was going to come. Sure, live your life like he's going to come today in the sense of holiness, but plan your life and do battle like Jesus said. Occupy till I come. So take all those books, tapes, videos that have been deceiving you for tens of years and throw them in the garbage and get busy with the work of the kingdom until he returns. God bless you.